Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Namofsky. Today's episode, we're discussing elevating your board effectiveness. Now, Deborah, before we went to break, we were talking about confidence. Now, how should women find their voice in the boardroom? And I know that you refer to the 4 Ps: purpose, presence, passion, and power. So please elaborate.
Yeah, well, I think recognizing that you do have a voice as a woman and you want to bring that forward. A lot of times it's challenging for women to find their voice. So I like to think, especially even if you're the token or the only one in the boardroom, but you have a fiduciary, you have a responsibility to have a voice. You've been selected to be on that board. So to help women elevate their voices in the boardroom, I like to suggest there's 4 Ps. And as you mentioned, there's purpose, there's presence, there's passion, and there's your power. And I'll give a little example for each one. So purpose is really why you're serving on that board. And I like to say, I created a social purpose company, which is Women Get on Board. And our purpose is to get more women on boards. So when you know the purpose of the organization that you're serving on the board, it's going to make you more effective and you're going to find your voice because you're not finding the voice for yourself. You're finding the voice for the purpose that you're aligned with. So having a really strong purpose of why you're aligned with an organization really helps you find your voice because it's not for you, it's for others. And that can be really powerful. And then when it's presence, it's really how do you show up, right? And you can have different techniques. Some people are more introverts and some people are more extroverts. So it doesn't mean you always have to be the first to speak. I think you can be really effective by having presence. And I like to think of boardrooms for boards. There's 3 stages of board meetings. There's before the meeting, there's during the meeting, and there's after the meeting. And you can have presence in all 3 of those phases of a meeting. And it may not be that you're as vocal in the boardroom, but you could be very observant and speak to colleagues after the boardroom, after the meeting. So I think that presence for you is how you show up and how you interact with others. And then the 3rd P is your passion. And if you're passionate about what you believe in, it's contagious. So it's really hard not to find your voice. And I give the example of I was asked to join the board of the National Ballet School Board. I had the financial expertise, I had the governance expertise. And when they did ask me in the interview why I was interested in the National Ballet School, I said, well, because I love dance. I always wanted to be a ballet dancer. And that passion came through loud and clear. And they're like, well, then, can you start tomorrow? So that was an example of my passion. It really came through. It was something I cared about. It's something I believed in. And I had the competencies, the technical competencies, and the skills to bring it forward. And then the last one is your power. And your power, I like to look at it as there's 3 elements of your power. There's learning, there's leaning in, and that's the opportunity to lean in on situations you might be in the boardroom. So for instance, a company is going through an acquisition and you as a director, you're serving on a special committee. You might lean in a particular area. I had a chair of a board that asked me to lean in on the due diligence for a transaction. And he said, can you lean in? And I said, okay, I'll lean in. And that gave me power to have influence and impact. It wasn't that I was making the decision at the end, but I could help move that transaction forward from a board perspective. Then there's learning up, and that's your knowledge. And that's always be learning, always be open. And Elizabeth, you talked about being a member of Women Get on Board. We do provide a lot of education and development and programs for our members to lead and serve on corporate boards. So that's your power. And then the last one is sponsoring others, right? And if I have been very fortunate to be sponsored, but I'm also very fortunate to sponsor others. And that power can be very effective.
I love the part of passion. You talked about, you have to be passionate. Every guest that has ever been on this show is full of passion, and their passion always comes through in the interview. We have a short period of time before we go to break, but when we come back, I want you to describe the concept of the power of 3. You talk about the power of 3 in your book, and you talk about the power of 3 as it relates to women in the boardroom. Do you just want to quickly just go through the power of 1 when we come back? We'll continue on.
Well, there is a concept, it's called the power of 3. And for in the boardroom, having one woman on a board, sometimes it's just considered the beginning or considered a token. And so when you're one, you need to have more around the table to amplify your voice.
Okay, so now we've ended with one. When we come back, we'll talk about the power of three. Don't go away.